what you see in front of you on the screens is when we meet, of course. And it's in this church, the First Church of the Nazarene. And it's at 6 o'clock we get started. Our socializing starts at 5:30. If you want to come and sit down and have a bite, there's snacks, plenty of snacks out there and drinks. And that's about it. Our meetings are wait. Okay. I'll go on. I'll go on to our mission. This is our mission. I call it CPR. I'm allowed to do that. I asked the board if it was okay to say that. CPR, conservation, preservation, and restoration of the native plant environments. That's what we do. That's what we're trying to get across to the public. No lawnmowers. No more lawnmowers, okay? I'm up the kazoo with lawnmowers in my neighborhood. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to get them out. So we're going to go on, and what's the next one? Oh, that's Luke. Where'd Luke go? Where's Luke? Oh. Now he is our new tech guru. This is Luke. Oh, sorry.
Sorry to all the people online that probably sounded terrible. So I am one of the board members at the Conradina chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society, and I just wanted to announce that we are doing a field trip on the 21st, Saturday, to Crookshank Sanctuary. It's a really cool scrub habitat with some sandhill stuff, a lot of really cool plants, some scrub jays. So if you're interested in coming out to that, please come and find me after and let me know, because you have to fill out a waiver just to make sure that we're all good there. Yes. It's in Vieira, roughly, like Vieira Rockledge area. Yeah. It's one of the Brevard environmentally endangered lands. So it's a conservation area. So if you're interested, come find me after and let me know. We've also formed a committee for trying to organize and plan more of these field trips. So if you're interested in being involved in that and helping to scout out new locations, or just be involved in planning or leading in any way, also come let me know. Committee is just a fancy word for a group chat, which means we all talk about what we want to do next. So yeah, thank you. Yes. What type of terrain are we walking on? Off-roading, so it's very sand, it's very off-roading. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's about 3 miles or so of a hike. So it'll be a couple hours. Sneakers.
No, one of your walks is through knee-high water. No? Not yet. I gave it away already. Okay, Carol, where's Carol? Oh.
I'll take that as well. You're going to tag me?
Yeah.
Can I just hold it? No?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Great to see you guys. First of all, who was happy to have all those wonderful snacks out there? Yes. And we have a wonderful bunch to thank. Stuart, Sarah, Eileen, Dee, Melanie, Joanne, Frank, and Christine. And they all donated those from their own pockets. So we want to give them a round of applause, please. We also had another piece of paper right out there, and it was for next month's speaker. So we always love if you guys have a time, either when you're coming in or going out, if you would please sign up for that speaker and even our next speaker after that. So I have 2 months on there. I want to also alert you to another sign-in sheet out there. It's about the Downtown Botanical Festival. And we are participating with that, and that is in April. And that's a huge festival on a Saturday, and so many people come, and it's in front of the 1900 building. So it's right down there in downtown Melbourne. And again, if you go by on your way out, if you haven't already signed up, we are able to sign up and set up Friday night. And then I need people all day on Saturday. Okay, so I'm wonderful. We have enough time to sign everything up. It's in April. Okay, so we're going to have a great time. That is April 3rd is the Friday, and the 4th is Saturday when the event. Thank you. Good question. Where is that? Yeah, it's on a Friday night when we can go in and set everything up. So you go and you come in the morning on the weekend of the 4th, and then we have a great amount of people that help with that all day. So you'll see I have like 3 clipboards, so you can come in for a couple hours and a couple hours and a couple hours. It's a long event, so appreciate that. Any other questions on that one? Oh, very quiet today. They're very quiet. Well, I have a wonderful opportunity to introduce our speaker, Miss Laura Lee Thompson. And she has been with us for a long time, guiding us through the ecosystems and especially the Indian River Lagoon. And I wanted to display my beautiful t-shirt because she has participated with the Space Coast Birding and Wildlife Festival for years and years, and she has a lot of good knowledge. So I'm just going to read a little bit about her and then let her go in with her speaking. Laura Lee's earliest memories are of running wild and free in her grandfather's fishing pier. As soon as she could just hold one, a fishing pole was gifted, and thus began a lifelong love of fishing and the outdoors. She commercially fished the Indian River Lagoon as a teen and worked her way up to running commercial longline fishing boats in the South Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. Laura Lee left the sea in 1987 to join her family at Titusville's Dixie Crossroads Seafood Restaurant, where she is now co-owner. Founder of the acclaimed Space Coast Birding and Wildlife Festival. I lost my track. She served on a variety of tourism's, growth management, environmental, and fishing boards. No longer a hunter of fish, Laura Lee now concentrates on the restoration of her beloved earth of Indian River Lagoon. So if we would, please welcome Lorianne Thompson. Thank you so much. Yes, you do. You're going to put this right in there?
How's that?
Perfect.
Turn that off or lay it down. I'm mic'd up with a wireless. This. Yeah.
So
So I had.
you're good?
Am I on? Am I good? Y'all can you hear me? All right. Well, thank you, Carol, for inviting me to come talk to you guys tonight. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to see so many people. Like when I did a talk for the Sea Rocket chapter in Titusville a couple months ago, there was like 10 people. So I couldn't believe how many cars were here when I pulled up. It made me happy. So several years ago, I was asked to put together kind of a travelogue for birders by an educational organization that was bringing students to our county. And that's why you're going to see a lot of birds in my talk. It's pretty bird-centric. I love birds, and I like this presentation so much. Aside from removing the tourist activities, I've pretty much kept it the same. So I hope you'll like it too. Let's see if this works. Where am I aiming this? Aim it at the screen. It doesn't like me. I'll aim it back there. At that screen, the TV screen. Oh, I have to turn it on. Well, you didn't tell me that part. Now I'm pointing at that screen. This screen? Maybe I didn't turn it on good enough.
I have my glasses on. So you turned it on?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where the on and off button is. But it's not just me.
Mm-mm.
Let's see.
Is this yours or there?
Oh,
Did you
no.
change it?
No, he's
Yeah,
changing it.
something's going.
Am I doing that?
No.
Nope.
Try that again.
Okay.
See something?
Yes.
on
Oh,
that?
thank you. Is that ours or yours? There it is.
There you go.
Where did you turn it on?
Over
Over.
the side.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay.
Is it the top one?
There we go. All right. So Brevard County, also known as Florida's Space Coast, has a landscape that was shaped by and still is dominated by water. It's a long, narrow county, 76 miles long, and it's only about 25 miles wide. The north-flowing St. Johns River borders its western side, alternating back and forth from a riverine state to lakes and marshes, providing an incredible place for birds and wildlife. The middle of the county has the Indian River Lagoon system, which is comprised of Mosquito Lagoon, the Indian River, and the Banana River. The Atlantic coastal ridge runs along the western side of the Indian River, and the Atlantic Ocean borders its eastern side. A variety of landlords manage great swaths of conservation land on both sides of Brevard County. The most well-known are the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which manage Merritt Island, St. John's, and Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuges, and the National Park Service, which manages Canaveral National Seashore. Smaller properties are managed by the Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Florida State Parks are managed by the Department of Environmental Protection, the St. Johns River Water Management District, and the Brevard County Environmentally Endangered Lands Program. One of our nation's most diverse estuaries, the Indian River Lagoon, rules the terrain with a multitude of habitats found within its watershed. So for simplicity, I clumped all those habitats into 6 major categories: St. Johns River, oak and cabbage palm hammocks, pine and scrubby flatwoods, scrub, estuary and salt marsh, and the high energy beaches and the ocean. Our geographic location is the reason for the incredible diversity of plants and animals that are found here. Brevard County is located between the temperate Carolinian and subtropical Caribbean climate zones. We have a lot of birds here. More than 300 species can be found here throughout the year. For this presentation, I placed them in the habitats in which you'll be most likely to find them, although most of them can be found pretty much all over the county. And except for a few that are extremely habitat specific, as I said, you can see many of these birds pretty much anywhere in the county. Winter visitors are shown in their winter plumage and may not look anything like what you see if you're further north and they're in their summer breeding plumage attire. So we're going to start our adventure on the western side of the county along the St. Johns River. There's 100 square miles of wilderness just west of Titusville, where every bit of the river's shores are now in public ownership. So basically, this map covers from about Highway 50 up to, this is Highway 46. So this whole entire area is now in public ownership, and it's 100 square miles of wilderness. You wouldn't want to get lost out there. So where am I at? So the water levels fluctuate greatly in this area. Sometimes this whole area is covered with water and it looks like the ocean with just some palm trees sticking out of the top of it. And then other times it's dry, like what you see here. So there's some really unusual things that happen here, like thousands of years ago. This was like the Indian River is now. The St. Johns River was a saltwater estuary, and this was like the ocean. So the sand dunes that are here, like along the Wakachi, that was like our coastal scrub ridge is now. So some of that ocean water got buried, and it's underground now. It's under the aquifer, and there are places where it seeps to the surface, and it creates salt pans, and you can see them. Some really good ones. This is in the Buck Lake Preserve. This is in the Puzzle Lake area. But these areas of white, those are salt pans. And you actually have the same vegetation that's growing out in the salt marshes of the National Wildlife Refuge. The same vegetation is growing around these salt pans. And then that's why, that explains why the dusky seaside sparrow, the last place on Earth after they ruined its habitat out on the wildlife refuge, the last place that it was seen was actually in the St. Johns River marshes. So why would a salt marsh bird be in a freshwater floodplain? It's because of these unusual saltwater upwellings that are creating this special habitat in the middle of the freshwater floodplain. So this is the only area of the St. Johns River where these saltwater seeps to the surface and creates these magical little biological islands of maritime habit in the middle of the freshwater floodplain. The best way to cover the St. Johns River is by airboat. So you can skim over the grasses and the shallow flats. You can also go in a motorboat, but then you're pretty much limited to staying in deeper water. And you can walk. There's hundreds of miles of trails, or you can go in a kayak. We have all of the glamour animals here in Brevard County that people want to see when they come to Florida. You know, they go to the Everglades to go see alligators. They can save 2 days off of their trip if they just stop here in Brevard County on their way to the Everglades, because our alligators are really a lot easier to see. You really have to work hard to get out into the marshes in the Everglades. It's a lot easier to see alligators here. You just drive around the Black Point Wildlife Drive. In the springtime, when the water is low in the St. Johns River, there's areas where the gators are lined up on the banks like big logs. It looks like the Nile. Your best chance of encountering a Florida panther or a black bear is near the St. Johns River. When Ponce de Leon landed on our shores, he was astonished at the flowers that he found here, and he named this strange land La Florida, the Spanish word for covered with flowers. This stunning display happens on parts of the St. Johns River floodplain for a couple of weeks every fall if the water is low enough for southeastern sunflowers to bloom. The seasonal flowers are wonderful, but the big show here is the birds. When they're feeding in tall grass, you can't even tell they're there. But if something spooks them, like if an eagle flies over them, they fill the sky. Except for alligators, sandhill cranes are the top of the food chain here. Our resident Florida sandhill cranes are joined by thousands of their northern cousins every winter. One of Florida's target species for birders is a limpkin. Once very difficult to find, thanks to an invasion of giant apple snails and mussels that grow in stormwater ponds, this elusive bird of the deep swamps has expanded its range. And so now it's not unusual to see them in golf course ponds. The St. Johns River floodplain, it's like a mini Everglades, and there's grass everywhere. And with tall grass, you get bitterns. And the smaller, more colorful leaf bitterns, there are year-round residents. American bitterns, which are the bigger ones, they migrate to Florida's wetlands in the winter. They're solitary and they rely on camouflage, often standing and freezing with their bills pointed skyward so they blend into the reeds. Beautiful birds. And they really do disappear right into the grass. It's hard to see them. Found here year-round, these highly coveted target birds favor the marshes of the St. Johns River too. Wait a minute. Sorry. These two marsh birds can be found on the grasses of the floodplain throughout the year, with numbers increasing in the winter when the northern birds arrive. They're highly secretive and hard to spot, often preferring to run through the grass rather than fly, and they're best located by their grunting calls, especially during breeding season. So that's the king rail and the Virginia rail. Found here year-round, these two highly coveted birds that favor the marshes of the St. Johns River. The one on the left, the purple gallinule, is known as the Jesus bird because of its ability to walk on floating lily pads. It looks like it's walking on water. They're common in freshwater marshes, swamps, and lakes with abundant vegetation. The other guy, the gray-headed swamp hen, was first established in South Florida in the 1990s. They've expanded their range northward and are now established residents in central and northern Florida wetlands. Because of the mild climate, they're believed to breed year-round or nearly year-round in Florida, with chicks observed in at least 9 different months. These birds are considered invasive species. They often are out competing the native birds like the purple gallinule. And here's another pair of Florida's target birds that birders want to see when they come here. And it's easy to see why. Just look at their legs and bills and their dramatic coloration. They're highly social, often seen in groups, and they're known to be quite vocal. Whistling ducks are so named for the high-pitched, melodic, 3-note whistling calls they produce, which differ significantly from the typical quack of other duck species. Fulvous whistling ducks are a bit harder to find than their cousins, as they prefer freshwater marshes, wetlands, and agricultural areas. Black-bellied whistling ducks, they like stormwater ponds and golf courses, and Florida has no shortage of either. They were formerly known as black-bellied tree ducks due to their unduck-like behavior of perching on tree limbs and nesting in tree cavities. Cool birds. And these are some of the more common species of ducks that you see out on the St. Johns River floodplain. These spectacular ducks are native to our area, nesting in tree cavities and man-made boxes near forested wetlands, lakes, and rivers. There's no shortage of target raptors out on the floodplain. Like limpkins, due to the spread of the giant apple snails, endangered snail kites are expanding their range. Just look at the size of that snail. Clawing back from the brink of extinction, snail kites have rapidly evolved with larger beaks and heavier bodies so they can handle the enormous gastropods. Peninsular Florida is their only U.S. range of the uncommon short-tailed hawk, where it prefers large expanses of open prairie, farmlands, and marshes next to woodlands. The St. Johns River floodplain is perfect habitat for them. So those two birds, birders that come here, they really want to get them. In the United States, you can only find this striking broadwing opportunist near the Mexican border and in the wet prairies of peninsular Florida. It often feeds on dead animals, and it's so aggressive it will chase vultures away from roadkill. And you got them down here in Vieira. That's a good place to see them. Swallowtail kites are migratory birds that arrive in Florida in early spring to breed and nest in tall pine trees, feasting on prolific amounts of bugs and other prey that's available on the floodplain. They migrate back to South America by late summer and spend the winter in the southern hemisphere. So these are, a lot of birds come here for the winter. These guys come here for the summer. So here's some more bug eaters. Known as butcher birds, loggerhead shrikes are frequently spotted perched on fences, power lines, or bushes where they impale their prey. They use their sharp hooked beaks to feed on insects, lizards, and small mammals. Scissor-tail flycatchers are primarily neotropical migrants that breed in the south central United States and spend their winters in Central America and southern Mexico. They're rare to uncommon winter visitors in the Central Peninsula. vermilion flycatchers, that little red guy, they're rare winter visitors too. And eastern phoebes, the one on the upper right, they're very common winter residents that arrive in the fall and leave by spring because they breed further north. All of these birds feed on flying insects, often catching them in midair. So here's some more bug eaters. And even more bug eaters. And warblers are another type of bug eater. The St. Johns River and its tributaries offer spectacular scenes of old Florida, a landscape that is rapidly disappearing. West of Titusville, this wilderness has been preserved forever. Like I told you, it's 100 square miles of wilderness there. In that upper left picture, that's a platform where boaters can go when lightning approaches. There's a lot of air boaters running around out there. And we get these horrific thunderstorms. And it's caused by warm air rising. So that you have all this heat and humidity and warm air rising from the St. Johns River. And once it gets up, really, really high, it turns into these monstrous thunderstorms and a lot of rain. So that's another really cool thing that we got going on here in Central Florida. We have wonderful lightning shows nearly every summer evening. As you head east from the St. Johns River floodplain, the edges of the grassy marshlands are rimmed by oak and cabbage palm hammocks. These hammocks and pine woods are found across the mainland and even on the barrier island. In the early days of Florida's exploration, botanists like William Bartram were fascinated with its tropical plant life. It's here in the oak hammocks and cypress swamps that exotic wild orchids and bromeliads are found. There's some pretty cool animals here too. Giant oak trees covered with moss greet the morning sun and very early morning rising birders. Owls, they love the oak woods. And so do woodpeckers. Bug eaters like these warblers prowl high up in the canopy looking for lunch. They're like colorful Christmas ornaments bouncing around in the treetops. And they're tiny. They're only about this big. And then this habitat is also where you can find your vireos and your kinglets. And some of your favorite yard birds, they also love the oak forest. You'll find pine trees at a slightly higher elevation. They don't like getting their feet wet. In the flatwoods, you'll see lovely depression marshes and fabulous native grasses. Pine flatwoods are a fire-dependent habitat. After a fire, the most amazing wildflowers will appear. And with the flowers come butterflies. Now, butterflies are habitat dependent. You guys know that. I mean, they have to have certain plants. But to make it easy and save space, I crammed all of the butterflies onto 2 slides and stuck them in the pine woods. But you'll see butterflies in every habitat. So these are the swallowtails and the other bigger butterflies, as well as the brown ones that hide in the woods. So the black and yellow striped butterfly on the red flower near the center is a zebra longwing, and that's the Florida state butterfly. And you can look at how its wings are longer horizontally than they are vertically. Not many butterflies have that characteristic, just the fritillaries and the long wings. And so here are the sulfurs and the skippers and the hair streaks, the tiny little hair streaks. Here's some of the animals that you might see in the pine woods. That charming creature in the top pictures is a Sherman's fox squirrel, found only in the longleaf pine forests of central and northern Florida and southern Georgia. And if you ever see one of these things, you'll never forget it. They're bigger than a gray squirrel, but just look at that amazing coloration. Except for the one in the middle, he's kind of scruffy looking. I don't know if squirrels molt, but that's kind of looks like what he's doing. The Osceola turkey is one of the 5 subspecies of wild turkeys that are found in the United States. It's similar to the other species, but our turkeys are smaller, darker in color, and they are only found in the Florida Peninsula. They're so named for the famous Seminole Indian chief who led his tribe against the Americans in a 20-year war that began in 1835. These raptors are pretty common. They can be seen all over the county, but I stuck them in the pine woods. And here you can see some of our wonderful native grasses. Grasses are a major component of a healthy pine habitat. That's one of the things I love about fall in Florida. The grasses are blooming and they're stunning when the sun shines through them and the wind blows through them. The threatened red-cockaded woodpecker is one of the most sought after birds of the pine forests. The best time to see one is at sunrise when the birds leave their nest cavities to spend the day looking for food. Look for large pines. Oh, I went too fast. So the people down in the lower left corner, it's hard to see, but there's some pine trees off to the left that have big white circles painted on them. That's what you want to look for if you're looking for red-cockaded woodpeckers. And you want to be sitting underneath those pine trees with the white circles before the sun comes up, because that's really the only time you're going to see them is when they come out of their nest cavities. And if you get lucky, if you miss them coming out of their nest holes, you might see them mixed in with a mixed flock of birds that are rummaging through the pine woods later in the day. Red-cockaded woodpeckers are the only woodpeckers in Florida with a distinctively barred back and combined with a solid white cheek patch. You can see that great big white cheek patch. The only place to see them in Brevard County is at the St. Sebastian River Preserve State Park. There's several relocation programs taking place in the southeastern United States to return red-cockaded woodpeckers back to what's left of our longleaf yellow pine forests. And your best opportunity to see the other 3, the flicker, the hairy woodpecker, and the red-headed woodpecker, is also in the pine woods. We have 4 species of doves that are found in Brevard County. Common ground doves are getting harder to find as their populations are experiencing a serious long-term decline, primarily due to habitat loss and predation by cats. They like open, dry, sandy areas. But the beautiful white-winged doves, which are really it's a spectacular dove, their numbers are increasing. It's a bird of the southwestern United States that was introduced in South Florida in 1959, and they've expanded their territories further north, and they've been established here in Brevard County for several decades. They're frequently seen in residential areas, backyards, and agricultural lands. And the other 2 doves, the Eurasian collared dove and the mourning dove, they're found everywhere. So bug eaters, they like the pine woods too, and so do berry eaters, as many of the understory plants in the pine woods produce berries. So these top 2 birds are also among Florida's target species. When people come here to go bird watching, they want to get these 2 pine birds. And they're very much habitat specific. They're only found in the pine forests of the southeastern United States. You're not going to find them up north. Without question, Florida's most endangered habitat is its ancient scrublands. These were the first pieces of land that appeared above water when the oceans receded millions of years ago. Because they don't flood, scrublands are the first areas of Florida to be developed. Sadly, more than 90% of Florida's scrub has been turned into shopping malls and housing developments. The ancient dunes are Florida's mountains. The highest point in Florida is along the Lake Wales Ridge, which runs down the center of the peninsula. The scrub in Brevard County is mostly associated with the Atlantic Coastal Ridge, which was the original dune line when the west shore of the Indian River Lagoon was the beach and Merritt Island didn't exist. It's a harsh, prickly, sticky, thorny environment with mysterious, marvelous lichens and mosses. Healthy scrub needs to burn every 7 to 10 years. In addition to development pressures, the other major impact to Florida scrub has been fire suppression. Florida has one of the highest incidences of lightning strikes in the nation, and before Florida was developed, lightning started wildfires that raced across the landscape, sometimes burning for days. Now, with human lives and property at risk, wildfires are put on hold as quickly as possible. So this has resulted in many of Florida's scrublands becoming overgrown and unsuitable habitat for their highly specialized inhabitants. Conservation and maintenance of Florida scrub involves a lot of prescribed burning. After the fire come the flowers. Florida scrub has some of the world's most critically endangered plants, many of which are endemic to only one small patch of scrub. Northern Brevard County is the only place on the planet where delicate scrub mint Dicerandra finicola grows. And you can see these lovely flowers at the Dicerandra Scrub Sanctuary in South Titusville. The flowering peaks in October and November. This engaging animal originated in North America 60 million years ago, making it one of the world's oldest living species. It's the only tortoise species found east of the Mississippi River. These gentle reptiles dig deep burrows for shelter and forage on low-growing plants. Their large limbs are uniquely designed to excavate burrows up to 33 feet long in Florida's sandy soils. They share their burrows with more than 350 other species who also depend on the burrows for shelter and protection from predators. Many animals are able to survive intense wildfires by going into tortoise burrows. This makes the gopher tortoise a keystone species, one without which many other species simply would not survive. Now here's some of the other cool animals that inhabit the Florida scrub. The beautiful scrub lizard. No one will argue that Florida scrub jay is the most charismatic occupant of our scrub habitat. It's the only jay species that lives in family units, and it's Florida's only endemic bird, recognized as a separate species in 1995. A victim of the development of Florida's scrub habitat, less than 10% of our historic scrub jay population remains. These remarkable birds are curious and friendly. They mate for life, forming small families that live in 20-acre territories. A juvenile helper stays with the parents and helps to raise and protect new fledglings until it goes off to establish its own family. And that part of that reason for that is because of the lack of habitat. There's really nowhere for new young scrub jays to go start a family unless one of the older jays dies and they have an opportunity to move into an older bird's territory. Scrub jays have astonishing memories. Each will store 6,000 to 9,000 acres individually in the sand, and they mark every location with a pebble, a leaf, or a twig to find later in winter. The Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge has the world's second largest population of Florida scrub jays. Painted buntings are widely considered North America's most colorful bird, frequently called non-pareil, which means without equal. I should have not put that in my script if I couldn't pronounce it, huh? Males boast a vibrant patchwork plumage of blue, green, red, and yellow, resembling a child's coloring book. They're found in coastal scrub and woodland edges during the summer, and they are small members of the cardinal family. In northern Brevard, that's like the southern extent of their breeding range. They breed in the coastal scrub from South Carolina down to Scottsmore. So we do have them in summertime in Scottsmore. But the habitat that they breed in is orange groves. That's rapidly disappearing too and becoming houses. In 1990, Brevard County citizens approved the first of two environmental referendums that would authorize $110 million earmarked for conservation, resulting in 3 incredible education centers and over 24,000 acres of sanctuary lands, representing a legacy of natural Florida habitats in a network of sites throughout the county. This visionary program became a model for land acquisition efforts for other communities around the nation. Our environmentally endangered lands program captures our citizens' desire for the long-term protection of Brevard's outstanding biological diversity, natural communities, and rare, threatened, and endangered species. Working with state, federal, and nonprofit organizations, Brevard County has established a regional sanctuary network that complements the larger state and federal network of conservation lands that we're so lucky to have here. These 3 environmental education centers provide learning opportunities to citizens, school children, and visitors. They're great for tourism. The Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge is a 140,000 acre refuge on the Atlantic coast of Florida's largest barrier island. NASA's Kennedy Space Center and its visitor complex are also situated on the island. This refuge is home to more threatened and endangered species than any other national wildlife refuge in the continental United States. 22% of the open waters of the Indian River Lagoon system lie within the refuge boundaries, and there's more than 120 miles of shoreline. At the northern end of the Indian River Lagoon is an area known as the Shiloh Marsh. Like other impoundments in this massive refuge, the Shiloh Marsh was created in the early 1960s for mosquito control. The ferocity of more than 20 species of mosquitoes hindered development of NASA's new Space Center. Located on Cape Canaveral, the Cape juts well out into the Atlantic, away from populated areas. That and the Cape's proximity to the equator made it the ideal location from which to launch rockets from American soil. So this picture's from the Shiloh Marsh. The Shiloh Marsh Dike Road is not open for vehicular traffic anymore. However, it's easy walking, and during birding season, it's well worth the effort to see what might be in the impoundments there. If you do take the time to walk the Shiloh Marsh Dike Road, you just might get a glimpse of one of these highly sought after secretive little marsh birds. They're there in the grasses in the impound. On the right side of your car, as you're driving towards the parking area for the Shiloh Marsh on the northern end, you will see the only salt marsh in the entire northern Indian River that was never impounded. It looks the same now as it did before white people invaded Florida. To enable development of this region by lowering the mosquito count, more than 90% of the historic salt marshes that rim the Indian River were impounded. Restorations are still ongoing to place culverts under the dikes and reconnect the salt marshes to the lagoon. And there's some even more exciting restoration work that's taking place now because they are now starting to take down the dikes themselves out on the wildlife refuge. So some of the impoundments, some of the dikes that actually run along the Indian River Lagoon and the Banana River are coming down, and that big earthen dam that blocked the salt marshes from the river is going away. I'm so excited. The Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge has 140 miles of those dikes, and more than 30 miles of them are open to the public for driving. Another 20 miles of dikes are open for walking. The 7-mile Black Point Wildlife Drive is by far the most popular drive, and you can see why from this picture. There's the Wildlife Drive in the background. So that's in the springtime when the water level goes down and pockets of water are holding bait, and you get these massive feeding frenzy of wading birds. The best time for birding on the wildlife refuge is from November through March. And if you like ducks and waterfowl, the best time for them is December through February. The refuge is a stronghold for our nation's rarest heron, the reddish egret. Everyone loves to watch their feeding behavior. They're often compared to drunken sailors, as they careen wildly about, chasing prey. As you can see in the upper left-hand picture. The bottom left-hand picture, those birds are courting. So they're very fun to watch, no matter what they're doing. And wading birds are the big show here on the Wildlife Refuge. They start going into their breeding plumage at the end of November, and their showy feathers just keep getting better and better all through spring. Absolutely stunning. On a nice spring day, you can take a kayak trip around Mullet Head Island, which is up by Hullover Canal, where more than a dozen water bird species nest, including many roseate spoonbills. You can see the adults bringing in food to the children, and there's a good chance that you'll see dolphins and manatees. Another shot of just stunning birds. Both species of ibis are here in large numbers. I've seen more glossy ibis in one place than here on the Merritt. I've never seen more glossy ibis in one place than here on the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge. So you can be looking out across a grassy plain and you think there's no birds there, and then a bald eagle or a peregrine falcon will fly over, and all of a sudden the air turns black with 400 glossy ibis. They'll circle around a few times and then drop back down into the grasses, and you can't tell that they were ever there. They just completely disappear. The refuge impoundments are also home to secretive on the top and not so secretive marsh birds in the rail family. And in the summertime, common gallinules is very common to see them with their cute little puffball babies. It's harder to see the sora and the clapper rails, but they're here all year too. The Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge is the winter home for thousands of ducks and coots. Can you spot the two Eurasian widgeons in the top left picture? And here's a clue. They have red heads. One of them is really prominent right there. That's a Eurasian widgeon, and the other one is right there. Can't quite see the red on that, but that is one. And again, when a Eurasian widgeon shows up on the refuge, I love it at my restaurant because a lot of the people that go birding at the refuge, they come to the restaurant to eat. So one time my dad, there was some kind of weird warbler from the Pacific Northwest showed up, and it was hanging out on the Oak-Hammock Trail. And it was unbelievable, the business that generated at my restaurant, right? And so my dad said, this is incredible. You know, can't you just like every once in a while just make up some bird that's out there on the wildlife refuge and then put it on social media? I said, no, I can't do that, Dad. It was a good idea. Where am I at? All right, so we're going to start out with some of the dabbling ducks, and they're called dabbling ducks because they dabble about. They eat the vegetation that's on the bottom, so they tip over and they're down on their heads are down on the bottom, and a lot of times you look out and all you see is a bunch of duck butts sticking up in the air. There's some more dabblers, and here's some of the diving birds. So these birds can swim underwater to chase fish. And you can see them both in the refuge impoundments and out on the open waters of the Indian River Lagoon, especially the red-breasted mergansers. And these guys, in the lower left, the lesser scaup, those are those black dots that you see out on the river when you're going across the causeway, and there's all these black ducks, masses of them out on the river. Those are lesser scaup. Sometimes there's tens of thousands of them here. Hasn't been that many this year. I don't know where they are, but there's other years when they turn the water black. And here's some larger fish eaters. So the top two, they look similar, and people get them confused. But all you got to do is look at their bills. The cormorant has a thick hooked bill that it uses to literally grab fish and then tear them apart. The anhinga has a stiletto sharp bill, and it uses its bill to stab fish. like a spear. Anhingas are sometimes called piano birds because the pattern on their outspread wings looks like a piano keyboard. And they're also called snake birds because they can swim underwater with nothing sticking out except their head. It looks like a periscope and it looks like a snake. And you guys know what these guys are. They're big fish eaters. Here's some of the refuge raptors. Brevard County has some of the nation's highest numbers for ospreys. All you got to do is just look at the light posts as you go down US 1, and they're in every community. But I think Titusville has more than y'all have down here. I counted 27 of them just on the light posts in Titusville one evening. Amazing. And their man-made platforms are everywhere. Peregrine falcons, those are the fastest birds in North America. They're migratory. They're not here in the summer. Northern harriers, they used to call them marsh hawks. Male northern harriers are sometimes called gray ghosts due to their pale silvery gray plumage and their silent low altitude hunting style. They're the ones that you see barely above the marsh, just gliding back and forth right above the tops of the marsh grasses. They appear to float effortlessly over the marshes and fields, and they seem to materialize suddenly, resembling a spectral, ghostly phenomenon. Here's something besides birds. Well, there are birds in this picture, though. Y'all getting tired of looking at birds? No? I mean, our birds are fabulous here. There's no question. Where the southeastern corner of the Titusville Causeway intersects with Gator Creek Dike Road, you will find Florida's most significant spawning area for horseshoe crabs. From December through April, look for the crabs when the wind blows hard out of the southwest and it's blowing perpendicular to the shore. Actually, when the wind blows out of the southwest, because of the alignment of the causeway, it creates kind of a bowl there. And so the wind blows and it pushes the water higher and higher in that area. And that's what the crabs want. They want to get high up on the shore to lay their eggs. They don't want to lay their eggs where they're going to be submersed because the eggs will rot and they won't hatch. They have to be in wet sand. And that's what they get when certain wind conditions. So with the crabs come shorebirds, massive, massive flocks of shorebirds and a variety of other birds that also feed on horseshoe crab eggs, as well as the stranded crabs. Gulls will pick them apart. They get turned over from the wind and the waves, and your gulls will come and tear them up. Volunteers count the nesting crabs during the months of February through April in the Linked with Limulus program for FWC. In our best year, we counted more than 70,000 horseshoe crabs just at that one location. And you can see why. Look at them on the beach. It's amazing. Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge is a great place to practice your winter shorebird identification because everything is gray and white. They all look the same to me, except for the bigger ones. They literally all look the same. Kevin Carlson has spent a fair amount of time trying to teach me how to tell the shorebirds apart. One of the best tips that he gave me stuck in my head, and that was his comparison for the dowitchers. So and those are the dowitchers down on the right. Short-billed dowitcher and long-billed dowitcher. But you can't go by the length of their bill because some short-billed dowitchers, they might have a longer bill than the long-billed dowitchers, or the reverse might be true. A long-billed dowitcher might have a shorter bill than a short-billed dowitcher. He said, if you look at their chest, and you can, if you look at their chest, the long-billed dowitcher looks like it swallowed a grapefruit, and the short-billed dowitcher doesn't. You can see the difference in those pictures. So the birds are identical. Very, very hard to tell apart, but you got to look at the chest and see whether it looks like it ate a grapefruit whole. The river and the refuge and the beach all have their fair share of terns and gulls. Black skimmer on the bottom. See how its lower bill is longer than its upper bill? And you see them skimming along the water, dragging that lower bill. And when they hit a minnow and flip it up in the air, then they can grab a hold of it. Beautiful, beautiful birds. So these are our most dominant gulls. Laughing gulls, they're here all year long. In the summertime, their heads turn black. You'll see the black-headed gulls. Well, those are laughing gulls in summer breeding plumage. I always know that winter birds are here when the ringbills arrive. And the wildlife refuge, it's home to more than just birds. You know, there's some pretty cool animals that live out there too, including the diamondback terrapin. It's another example, like a horseshoe crab. That is an animal that absolutely has to have sandy beach habitat. It has to have sandy beach to lay its eggs. And sandy beach habitat, that is the most endangered habitat in the Indian River Lagoon. So south of Titusville, over 90% of the shoreline is now hard armored with vertical seawalls and piles of rocks because people are trying to keep their yards from washing away. So as we move forward with lagoon restoration, you're going to hear me in the background screaming about it's nice to have coquina rocks on the shoreline and mangroves planted behind them, but we have got to figure out a way to save some of the sandy beach or recreate sandy beach habitat. And that's what we're doing on the Titusville Causeway. That's a whole nother story. More than a third of Florida's manatees use the waters of the wildlife refuge, and the Indian River Lagoon has its own resident population of Atlantic bottlenose dolphins, which are sometimes joined by visiting dolphins that come in from the sea. Canaveral National Seashore is one of only 10 national seashores in the entire United States. It has the longest stretch of undeveloped beach on Florida's east coast. The dominant feature is Cape Canaveral, which is home to the Kennedy Space Center. The beaches of Brevard County are the world's second most significant nesting beach for loggerhead sea turtles. And we also see large numbers of green sea turtles and leatherback sea turtles. The world's most endangered whale has calves here and spends the winter here. And you can sometimes see them from the beach. Or a couple of years ago, a mother and a calf actually swam into Sebastian Inlet and went into the river and then turned around and went back out again. That was pretty amazing. Here's some of the shorebirds that you can see at the beach and also at the estuaries. Ruddy turnstone, it gets its name because it likes to turn stuff over with its bill. It turns over grass and it turns over rocks, and that's why it's called a turnstone. The black-bellied plover, it doesn't have a black belly in the wintertime, but it does in the summertime. It'll have a big black spot on its chest in the summertime, but it has all year long black armpits. So when you see a shorebird flying and you see flashes of black, that's a black-bellied plover in its armpits. The sanderlings, those are the ones that race back and forth and up and down, trying to outrun the water and pick up sand fleas in the process. Because of the way that Cape Canaveral sticks way out into the ocean, Playa Linda Beach on the northern end is an outstanding place for sea watching in the fall and winter, especially with a northeast wind. That pushes the birds in from the ocean towards land. So all three species of scoters, which are sea ducks, they can be seen here. The black scoter is the one that is most often seen. More scoters and some loons and stuff. And these are some of the largest gulls that you're going to see here. The great blackback gull, I believe, is the largest gull in the world. And they're massive. I mean, if you see one, it's going to dwarf all the other gulls that are around it. And it's got a coal black back. The lesser blackback gull, it's a little bit harder to identify because it looks like a herring gull and it's about the same size as a herring gull. But that's our two biggest gull species. And I just love the dainty, fairy-like behavior of these little gulls. I've seen them patter their feet on the water on top of sargassum patches out by the Gulf Stream, just like Wilson storm petrels do. It's a fascinating behavior. They get right above the water and they do their feet like this, and they stir up the water, and it stirs up organisms in the water, and then they can grab them. And it's really cool to watch them do that. North of Brevard County at Daytona Beach Shores, the beach is known for this amazing spectacle of what might possibly be the largest congregation of gulls on any beach in the United States. The astonishing concentration builds to possibly as many as 30,000 gulls every evening. And seen consistently here are rare gull species. And so people come to see that big, massive gathering of gulls looking for rarities. So early in the day, the gulls are at the Volusia County landfill gorging on garbage. Then they congregate on the beach in the late afternoon. So they leave the dump and they fly across the Halifax River and they land on the beach directly east of the landfill. And they hang out there on the beach, for a couple of hours. And then they get up again and they fly to the other side of the breakers. And that's where they spend the night. They roost offshore of the breakers. And that's when the Pomeranian and parasitic Jaegers come in every evening to harass the gulls. They will actually catch a gull and eat it if they can. So you get quite a show when these big seabirds come in and start messing around with the gulls. And here's some terns that you can see on the beach or the estuary. Not so much the sandwich tern. It pretty much favors the beach, or they like to hang out on the channel markers on the way in and out of the port. So they're pretty much ocean birds. But the other three birds can be found in either places. It'd be rare to see a sandwich tern at the wildlife refuge. Yep. Okay, I have one more page. We good? Okay. All right. So now it's time to head offshore and look for the mysterious pelagic birds. Wanderers of the ocean, pelagic birds only come to land to nest. They spend the majority of their lives at sea. Look how happy these birders are. They're happy because it's calm. Usually they're out there in pounding waves and getting soaking wet, and this was a decent day, and they were very happy. So the first thing we look for are working shrimp boats. And here you can see why. I mean, they're magnets for birds of all kinds. Thousands of northern gannets winter here. Their aerial displays are easily seen from the shore. The Wilson storm petrels, they're called Mother Carey's chickens. And that's based on an 18th and 19th century sailor's superstition, referring to the birds as small, storm heralding followers of a mythical sea witch named Mother Carey. And there she is. The sailors actually thought, that these birds appeared before and during severe storms, acting as messengers or chickens for Mother Carey, who was thought to control the bad weather. Some pretty cool tropical birds are possible in the Gulf Stream. And that frigate bird on the lower left, that bird flew right up on our stern on a bird festival pelagic trip. You can see our chum hanging out of its mouth. And here's some boobies and pelagic terns. You can see why it's bridal tern. The sooty tern and the bridal tern are very, very similar, but the bridal tern has those white lines that go all the way past its eye, and that's how you can tell them apart. And the Cory shearwater, that is the most common shearwater that you're going to see. It's better to go pelagic birding in the fall and spring during migration, because in the summertime, you can go for hours and not see a bird out on the ocean, and it's hot. So you're out on the ocean, and you've gone all the way out to the Gulf Stream in the middle of summer, not seeing anything, praying to be able to see that bird on the right, the black-capped petrel. It's very rare, but in the summertime, it hangs out in the center of the Gulf Stream, And so you got a pretty good chance of getting that in the summertime. All right, so now it's time for commercials. All right, so without a healthy Indian River Lagoon, we would not have our wonderful birds and wildlife. And I can remember in 2016, you know, when we were having the algae blooms and the fish kills, the birds disappeared. You know, they're not going to hang around where they can't eat. And so we had these massive fish kills in the river, lost our fish biomass, all the seagrass died, and the birds left. But they're coming back now because the river's getting better. There's going to be a referendum to extend Brevard County's half-penny sales tax in November. Please, please, please vote yes, and tell your friends and relatives they need to vote yes too. And the birding festival that I started long ago is still going strong. It attracts exhibitors and field trip leaders from all over the world, and it happens near the end of January every year. And if you want to go on some of the cool field trips, you need to register early because they fill up fast. So thank you very much for listening to me blather on tonight. I have a lot of fun telling people about this special place where we live. I hope you enjoy my talk. Thank you very much. You have time for questions? You shouldn't have any questions. I told you everything you need to know. Christine. No, it was actually Buck Lake. Yeah, Buck Lake up north of Mims. The Danny Bales, both of those birds, the nuthatch and the Bachman sparrow, were up in Buck Lake. I went fishing for them on the internet. You know, when you look at the pictures on the internet, and they always have this disclaimer, you know, that they could be copyrighted. But I also read that you could use pictures from the internet as long as they're educational and you're not making money off of them. So I hope that's true, because most of those pictures came from the internet. The horseshoe crab pictures are mine, of course.